Let's go and move with life. Let it go. Something new tonight. Let's go and move with life. Let it go. Something new tonight.
G'day guys, welcome to the unofficial Scorecard Podcast, the podcast where we talk all things boxing and occasionally the wider world of combat sports. This is episode 75, and today guys, this episode was an absolute mission, so it wasn't actually today, it was well and truly last week, but more on that in the outro. This is episode 75 with a writer and contributor at Boxing Scene. He's got his own boxing podcast and column on Substack, and he's got the Lukie Boxing YouTube channel on YouTube. It is Luke Ketelle. Guys, this was an awesome chat. As I briefly just mentioned then, it was a mission to get out through a myriad of technological issues which all stem from my complete inability to know what I'm doing with all this stuff. So it's a little bit of a dated conversation, but the good thing was, and it was quite fortunate, as we always do on the pod, use the recent results and upcoming fight schedule as a rough guide, which we certainly did to an extent, but a lot of this conversation went in a different direction with Lukie, more so about his personal experiences in the sport, in training camps and that type of things around really high-level guys, and a lot of his experiences and more of a general broader outlook on the sport itself. It was definitely a different conversation. It was certainly an interesting one too. So the delay in, about a week and a half, 2 weeks from time of recording doesn't really take anything away from this conversation. It ended up being, mostly by coincidence, a sort of an evergreen conversation that can still be relevant at any time. So, guys, I will stop stuffing around. Lukie was massively generous with his time to me. He's a really nice bloke. Certainly plan on getting him back on the pod in the future also as well. But, guys, enough rambling on and excuses. Let's get to the almost lost episode now. One of the most multifaceted boxing contributors in the game, from the Lukie Boxing YouTube channel, Lukie's Boxing Podcast and column on Substack, and writer and contributor at boxingscene.com. It's Luke Ketelle. Lukie, welcome to the show, mate. Thanks for making some time for me.
Yeah, you used a lot of words I'm not familiar with, but thank you. I'm going to assume they're good. You said it in a very nice way, so I think that was really good. So
yeah, I don't know what all those words mean, but they were meant with the best positive intentions anyway. So,
well, good. I always like that. It's always a pleasure to meet nice people, and you've been nothing but great for the experiences I've had with you, and I can't wait to share with you some average boxing thoughts.
Oh, mate, if you want average boxing thoughts, this is the place. You've come to the perfect podcast. I've got plenty of them myself. But, mate, we'll start with the Ring 4 card that happened over the weekend. I will just run through the results quickly. Obviously, we had Abdullah Mason with a unanimous decision over Sam Noakes in a great fight. Jesse Bam Rodriguez, a KO in the 10th round over Fernando Martinez. Devin Haney doing Devin Haney things over Brian Norman Jr. and David Benavidez in the main event with the 7th round TKO stoppage. We'll jump into all those fights, Lukie, but just before we do, mate, your thoughts on the card as a whole. I mean, it was kind of billed as the most impressive ring card to date. I felt like it delivered. How did you feel about it when it was all said and done?
I mean, it's fine. I think the problem is, right, we're learning that mega fights don't always produce mega cards, right? Sometimes two up-and-comers that don't have the accolades, you get a battle, I don't know, like Vladimir Hernandez versus Veron, or Vladimir Hernandez versus Guido Scrum. You get these fights where on paper people might not be super excited, but they produce these great action fights, and you call your friends. And then sometimes you get these big name fights that you covet. I look at, I love the Artur Beterbiev Dmitry Bivol fights, but there's so much stress and it's such a high level fight. Is it really that rewatchable? So I grapple with the idea, and maybe I'm getting too deep on you here. I'm drinking some strong cold brew, so I'm feeling that caffeine rush. But maybe sometimes when there's all this pressure and all this money, it's hard to deliver because the athlete is dealing with so many different things. There's an expectation of performance. What am I going to do? What's my legacy going to say? So I don't really know how to answer it because all these cards are great. I'm a degenerate. I watch undercard boxing. I watch all the undercard. So I watch everything. But I don't know. These cards always leave me kind of feeling like, okay, what's next? Like I've never experienced a card that felt completely start to finish as though this one met my expectation. And it's weird because I've never entered with an expectation.
Yeah, mate, that's such an interesting point, especially about the Bivol Beterbiev fights that you brought up. I enjoyed both, probably like every other boxing fan on the planet. But yeah, to your point, I've never rewatched either one back. And I never realized or thought about it that way until you just said it. And I probably don't have any plans to watch them back either, to be totally honest. Then there's fights I'll watch 15 times. Like once a year, I love watching Pereira Morales 1. Yeah, I'm not saying it's the best fight, but it's my favorite fight. I watch it religiously every 12 months. But man, that's such an interesting point you made. Has that sort of crept into your boxing watching habits the more sort of the longer tenure you've had in the game, Lukey, or have you always sort of had that kind of perspective from day one?
I mean, just being burnt out just helps you have perspectives like that at times and being in the game. But like just to add to it, it's like I feel like if I was on a dating website and I didn't have a smoking hot girlfriend, I'd put I rewatch Better Beeve and Bivol. I'm that this is what you have to look forward to on Saturday. We can rewatch it and then create a YouTube video stream about how we scored it. Like, are you ready to watch Golovkin Jacobs with me and count the punches in the rounds so we can get a factually accurate one? I don't know. I think that this is just what I bring to boxing is like I think differently, right? I've come from different backgrounds and part of that is business and other approaches. And I think I naturally look at situations in a different way. And one of them is like this, like Better Beef Bivol. It's historically a great legacy fight, but it's also not one I'm going to revisit. And it's like you look at a few of these cards, like even like Rolly versus Ryan. I like both fighters. It's not a rewatchable fight. Haney versus Norman, probably not rewatchable, but it's a hugely important moment for Haney's career because he could have potentially been a fighter that gets relegated, and not that he's a bad fighter, but people look at Fernando Vargas and go, that Tino Trinidad fight changed him. People could have looked at the Ryan Garcia fight and been like, that changed him. Now it's like Joe Calzaghe versus Jeff Lacey, where Norman has to fight that stigma of that this fight changes him, but the fight's not going to be rewatched, and the context of the win won't be remembered of Norman, what he was doing into it. And I think that that's also the interesting thing is, even when you make the biggest fights possible, the context of the moment changes so often. So you're always chasing a hamster wheel of what's the next big marquee bout is what I think is the intrigue kind of for me.
Yeah. No, mate, you've got my mind reeling. That's so interesting. And I didn't realize I agreed beforehand, but yeah, I certainly do. And Canelo Crawford, great performance by Crawford. I haven't rewatched it back. It's free on Netflix. I didn't have any plans to. Maybe I will out of interest now just to see if I felt the same way about it I did live. But yeah, it never even entered my brain to watch that fight back. And maybe to your point, it's like, well, what next for both guys? We really just don't know. There was never a clear path. It was a fight that came out of nowhere. There wasn't that sort of, okay, fight this guy, defend against this guy, unify against this guy. There was no real method to the matchmaking, it seemed, rather than a claim and a hell of a lot of money. So, yeah, sorry, man, I'm just rambling a bit, but no, massively interesting.
Add on to this, right? Yeah. So, like, let's just add on because this is more interesting than probably most people being like, let me tell you about our fight predictions and what we saw, just like what you saw.
All right, I'll just take that off the list. Fight predictions.
Yeah, check that one off the list. It's like, well, let me share with the audience who loves boxing the exact same things you witnessed that I witnessed, and let's say it in reasonable and rational ways. Yeah. I think that the thing is the path to for me, what's really important are, I love watching young fighters. I love to see the growth and the development. And then another thing is I like to see a path moving forward. So like in Billy Lester Martinez is awesome because it's consequential. Who's the man? Yeah, Ulysses Iglesias is a guy that I absolutely love right now as a fighter. Any fight he takes is of consequence because it feels like he's battling to be the best super middleweight. I think some of these fights in hindsight, like Better Beef Bivol, it's for the best light heavyweight, but then it really feels like who's going to be the next person to challenge? When do they get back? So though it is a consequential and exciting fight, and it's not, the outcome is more important, whether it's a back and forth fight. And then if we think about it, right, how many legendary fighters are in Fight of the Years, right? Because Fight of the Years typically is a formula where you have one flaw in one fighter and another flaw in another fighter, and that's what makes the magic, is that the guys have flaws, but the other person's flaws is their strength. And then you get like a guy goes down, a guy comes back, etc., etc. You often don't get that at the top of the sport. So like, I think that part of what makes some of these fights tough are, what's the path moving forward? What's the path for Benavidez? Okay, we learned that he's going to fight Zordo, but what does that mean for Bivol or Better Beef? Because those were fights I really wanted to see, because on my pound for pound list, and I'm sorry for saying it, and I know I'm being a bad guest where I'm just going on a heater here. It's bad dialogue, and people are like, what? I don't want to hear this. But like, I kind of want to see Benavidez in with Better Beef or Bivol. They're 4 and 5 on my pound for pound list. He's number 8 or 9. That's a consequential pound for pound fight. I really like Zordo. I'm probably higher than most people on Zordo. That's a good fight. But then I have to start wondering, like, in my head, I saw Roy Jones move up in weight and then come back down in weight. Are we going to risk Benavidez? So for me, I think also the big thing is the path. What is the path moving forward for these fighters? And what's the journey along with this consequential mega fight? And sometimes that dampens my expectation after some of these performances.
Yeah, you're so. Again, my mind's racing a bit. But I think you hit the nail on the head, Lukey. That's what you mentioned. You know, you're passionate about watching young fighters and development and stuff. And how much fun is it when you get onto a fighter early, you follow them through that developmental period, and then they, crescendo with a world title, or maybe it's a regional title, or whatever their ceiling is, but they do get there, and whatever that end goal was, and they attempt to fulfill it if they do or not. But it's always like the journey, and the journey is an overused word in podcasting or whatever, but like that journey to get there, as a fan watching from the outside, is more often than not so much more fun than watching them get to the destination, if that makes sense. Like when they're fighting 3 or 4 times a year and they're fighting all different styles and they're developing and they're changing, and then they get to that very top level and they're once or twice a year fighters, they're kind of going to do the same thing every fight because it's got them to the big dance and kept that belt around their waist or whatever. It's like that developmental period that you pointed out is, as a fan, to watch fighters from all over the world, that's the fun part. That's the part that sort of really gets you riled up. You're not overpaying for pay-per-view to watch these guys in fights. They're going to win. That I forget the word you said, consequential. That was right. When the fights are of consequence and then that there's a path, I think you have absolutely nailed it, mate. It's not something I've thought of before, but that is a brilliant observation. You've got my cosign.
But then there's like prospects that, like, here, if you want, pick a prospect and I'll kind of talk you through the way I look at the rubric of this. If you want, just pick any prospect and I can go to the box rec. But it's like there's parts of the journey where you're like, okay, he's going in with a puncher, a decent puncher. The guy can't cut the ring off. And you grade him on not just the performance or if he can win, but does this work at the highest level? Because like for me watching prospects, it's like you start getting these dress rehearsals for the top of the sport. And that's when it gets fun, is when you start seeing, like I always say, like Iglesias or some of these guys I'm really high on. I think right now Albert Chop Chop Gonzalez is someone I really like. And his performances to me carry over to a world title fight. And those are when the prospects get interesting, is when they have paths to win at the highest level. And oftentimes you can get some fighters who catch excitement, especially in the social media era, where their athleticism and strength vault them up. But the way to win at the highest level, they might not have that. So you get these fighters that are extremely popular, but then they get into these big cards. Sorry about that. And, there's issues. So I enjoy those, the prospect, the developmental fights. I think I just enjoy boxing as a whole. So like if you put together enough fights, I'm the guy that going into this card, my most exciting fight was Jesse Bam Rodriguez
Yes.
against Fernando Martinez. And my second exciting one was Abdullah Mason versus Noakes. And I'm telling everybody, look, I've seen Noakes. This kid's good. He's smart. He's not, but there's this assumption in the US, and I don't know if they do it in Australia, but if the guys have never fought in the US, people assume they suck.
Yeah.
And I saw it all the way back with Carl Frampton. It's like Frampton was a great fighter, but because he didn't fight in the US, people just assumed he would lose to Leo Santa Cruz. And it's just a bias. And with Noakes, Abdullah Mason deserves so much credit because he fought a composed top fighter who really thought he was going to break down Abdullah in the later rounds. Like mentally, he did not go in there with an ounce of doubt. And for a 21-year-old to do that is extremely special.
Oh, mate, absolutely. And we'll get into that card now. So that's a perfect segue, Lukey. Abdullah Mason, with his crowning moment, winning that world title at 21 years old, as you mentioned, with the unanimous decision over Sam Noakes. And how often do you get a fight between, relatively unknown guys in the grand scheme of things? And there really was no loser. Like, both guys impressed the absolute hell out of me. You mentioned you'd seen a bit of Sam Noakes beforehand. I put my hand up. I had not, so I wasn't really sure what to expect. What did you think going in before this fight started? Did Sam Noakes sort of live up to what your expectations were of him, or did he exceed them?
He was exactly what I thought, right? I thought this fight was always going to be a 12-round decision. I thought Mason was more than likely going to win it. But I thought this was a true championship fight and a championship test. Noakes, I remember first seeing, and I came in late, was when Joe Joyce stopped Joe Parker. And I remember he was the only person that stood out to me as someone that could fight at the world-class stage. Because you got to remember, I'm a sicko. If golf's not on, which I love golf, I'm going to have the boxing on. And okay, we can get into a little Adam Scott swing theory and all that. We got the flags in the other room. But it's with him, I remember seeing, this is a style that's going to work, and he's physically strong. So going into this fight, I thought Abdullah would win the early parts off of youth, athleticism, because Abdullah just has certain things that Noakes doesn't have, right? Noakes isn't fast. Noakes doesn't have a great reach. Noakes isn't probably a generational puncher at the highest level of the sport. Abdullah might be. But he has grit, and he has a little bit of that Ricky Hatton to him. And I felt like there was a world where this could be the Costa Tszyu fight if Abdullah got going too quick. And what impressed me was Noakes did fight the Ricky Hatton fight, and Abdullah weathered the storm at 21 years old. And this is the danger of going on the internet, right? I love the internet because I would just be a stupid person who has pointless views on boxing if it wasn't for the internet. The internet gave me what all these platforms for just having opinions, right? But Abdullah showed so much. You can coach guys, but when they're 21, there's a level of experience they don't have. It's like trying to explain to someone what being 40 is. You can kind of explain it to them, but it's like you have to suffer, you have to make mistakes, you have to go through real depression, you have to have almost someone kill you or face a life illness, and then that's 40, right? You have to lose someone that you genuinely love. Like you try to explain it, but it's like it's the process, right? And that's what being a champion is. And the fact that moment and those hard circumstances didn't break Abdullah showed me his championship merit, and I was impressed with both. Am I just talking too much? Just interrupt me if I'm talking too much.
Mate, this is what it's all about. It's about talking. No, I'm enjoying it, mate. I'm enjoying your insights for sure. And the thing you mentioned about it, no fighters have experience until they get it, and it's always the thing in matchups. People say, oh, look at this guy's resume against that guy's resume, but no one's fought anybody until they have for the first time. That's just the nature of reality.
Let me interrupt you again.
Yeah.
So this is a thing that I said to someone behind the scenes that I deeply respect, but I won't just name drop him because I don't think he'd care. But he's someone that I look up to as I'd say a mentor figure. He's a a matchmaker, former matchmaker type person. Who knows who he is, right? And I think we should only put the records, like there should be a record, right? Okay, you're 17, 20-0. But we should keep like the real record. And that's 3-1. So in fights against guys that are 50-50, what's your effing record? Oh, you're 0-3 in real guy fights. Right? And that's experience. Is like that. I almost feel like that should be your experience record. What's your experience? Oh, you're 0-3. That's the experience record, because we have a lot of, manufactured stuff in boxing. And I kind of wish we had a little bit of like behind the numbers with records. But go carry on. I'm just trying to take over your podcast.
Oh, mate, feel free. It needs a bloody refresh. So you might be the man for the job. But no, that's interesting, mate. But yeah, so to add on to Abdullah Mason, the fact that he was able to have that almost sort of like Shane Mosley power boxing style, he's so explosive. He throws everything so fast, so hard. He'd never been in a 12-round fight. I don't believe he'd been past 6, but to actually keep up that level of output and that intensity in a hard, grueling physical fight that, Sam Noakes was making difficult for him at points, if not for, large portions of the rounds, was super impressive. It not only speaks to his resilience, but also to his team's ability to game plan and prepare him for that moment. I don't actually know, Lukie, who does Abdullah Mason train with? Are they a well-known team? Or?
Well, I wanted to give his father credit, Valiant Mason. Do you want me to give you a story?
Please
Lukie,
do.
story time?
Yes.
Okay, so it was COVID. It was COVID, and it was like what month do you want to pretend it is? March or April?
Sure.
Could have been anywhere from March to June to April. And some guy, I know the guy, but I won't say the guy's name, is like, talk to this dad. And I'm on the phone with Valiant Mason, and he's telling me, he's like, I got this kid. All my kids can fight. I got their world championship level boxers, and I'm being real nice to him because I don't know, and you hear, I don't know if you've ever talked to a boxing dad, but every dad you talk to that has a boxer that turns pro, they tell you their kid's going to be a world champion. So when you do this for about 20 years, you get a little numb to hearing that your son is, but I like to think that I'm a nice guy, and I'm trying to be understanding, and I don't even know how the conversation went anymore because that's how long ago it was. And then within a year, he was signed. And then a couple years later, he was one of the biggest up and comers. And I always remember that is like just a random, like that's how quick this stuff goes, is a random phone call in my condo at the time during lockdown. Valiant Mason, who's a great trainer, he's got all of his, and I think the thing with that family is, in an era of cringy and corny, can we applaud a father and the people around him to raise young men that aren't corny? Like, not just is he a good fighter, this is a dignified kid that doesn't embarrass. Like, if Abdullah Mason goes anywhere, he's not going to embarrass you as saying he's a boxer. This is a kid who's a competitor. He's got his little catchphrase, I got an appetite for smoke. But he's a great ambassador for boxing. We have a lot of ambassadors of boxing that we have to give an explanation for some of these characters currently when they get on the platforms, And I think that not just is his dad a great coach, people should applaud him for the man he is, for raising the young men he did. And I think that the man he is and the way he coached his son is the reason that his son won that fight, because Noakes was coming on with a ferociousness around, I'd say around, you tell me because you probably know more than me, it was around 6 or 7. Noakes was really coming on. He was okay. I remember being like 6 or 7, but these espressos, so he came on and he was, I think that's when he mentally said in his mind, I'm going to break this kid. I'm going to break him. I'm going to put my will on him. And I really think that it's the bonds between his brother and his father and the foundation that was built that mental strength. See, this is a thing. I'm going to go on another random thing for you, and you're going to be like, you're the worst guest ever.
No, go for it. People
talk about technique, right? Especially insecure people. Oh, look at the jab. Look at the technique. Look at the feet. The emotion of the moment matters just as much. Knowing the fighter matters just as much. People will talk your ear off about a jab, but won't talk to you about when someone has doubt in their eyes and you snap it out by saying, come on, man, we're not letting this happen tonight. I think a great example of this is when Andre Ward got dropped by Kovalev and Virgil Hunter motivated him rather than telling him technical because he knew what would get the most out of him. And I think that Valiant Mason is becoming one of the most exciting up-and-coming coaches, to be honest. And I think Noakes, here's the crazy thing. I think Noakes had a good coach, and I thought he fought a good fight too. He just ran into a possible legend.
Yeah. No, mate, that's well put. I'm definitely guilty of that myself, more looking at the technical aspect and not taking into account enough of what's going on between these guys' ears. That's definitely something I've got to expand my mind to and
let me add another soundbite.
Yeah.
Because I just want to talk and talk. This one time I was in a boxing gym, right? And I watched a guy get beat up who ate a kale salad. And the guy that beat him up drank a Diet Pepsi and ate a hot dog. Okay. So if that doesn't tell you, and they were both high-level fighters, if that doesn't tell you that there's a little bit more than the technique, if the guy that ate the kale salad, he did the stretches, he did the arm things, and a guy drank a Diet Pepsi and a hot dog, and he stopped him. It's not just X's and O's. You know, some of this is, I'm a mean man and I've had a hard life, and I'm going to make you feel my life. And some of it is motivating a person to get them to go beyond their belief. This is part sport and part Army general. You know, that's what this is. Part of it is you're leading someone into something where they might die. They might not be able to do it. That's part of what this is. And a lot of people try to romanticize, oh, I'm playing PlayStation 2 with this controller and my fighter is an extension of my genius. No, a lot of this is we're going up Hamburger Hill in Vietnam. And we don't know if we're going to do it. And I'm scared, but I'm going to talk you into I'm not scared. And every moment I've got a grenade ready to huck just in case. But we're terrified. And that's the part of the sport no one talks about, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But it reminds me a lot of shout out to the Aussie boxing scribe, a legend of Australian boxing, Anthony Cox, who I believe you're familiar with too, Lukie. He's always talking
guest
to
of the show.
Yes, absolutely. Guest of this show also. But he's always talking to me about the mental side. And you're right. Yeah, I think that's definitely something that I've neglected. I've got to take that into account more often. But if we get back to Abdullah more specifically, Lukie, the chance at the world title obviously came a little bit earlier than expected with Keyshawn Davis just like egregiously missing weight and getting stripped. He is only 21, as you've mentioned. You seem to have a very sort of good insight into the team dynamics and the type of people they are. What would you like to see in the next couple of fights for Abdullah moving forward?
He's got a great promoter and a great manager. They don't, whatever they're going to do. Because like he's got the team around him. It would be naive for me on a podcast to be like, you know what, this guy who makes a middle class income, I should tell very successful business people how they should. No, they're gonna make the right decisions. They're gonna figure out what's gonna be good, and as a consumer, I'll enjoy it. Yeah. I quite trust the opinions of his management and his promoter. So, you know, against other top contenders and champions. That's what I think.
Awesome. Well, it's going to be fun to see. Now, let's jump into what you mentioned, your most anticipated fight on the card. Mine too. Jesse Bam Rodriguez's brilliant performance against Fernando Martinez, picking up a third title at super flyweight. This pretty much went sort of how I thought it would. I just thought Bam was, you know, a level or two above. That certainly was the case. It was so much the case, I don't think Jesse Bam sort of got over 60%. He seemed to kind of take chances and get hit and not really worry about it more. But the gap in level was so big, it didn't really matter. What was your sort of read on Jesse's performance a couple of days ago?
I mean, it blew me away because he had a kid the week of the fight. He wasn't there for the birth. If someone was going to give him issues in the weight class, it was this guy because he was bat-ish crazy. He was coming with physicality, want to be crazy. I talked myself into this being a competitive fight. And within 1 minute, I knew I was stupid. Within 1 minute, I just was like, what was and then it makes me realize, like, how good is Bamrod? Like, maybe Shakur Stevenson is that good, right? But what other fighter makes the second best guy in the division look like a tune-up fight?
Yeah.
Like, the standard for Jesse Bam Rodriguez is if the most legitimate challenger who's a unified title holder basically looked like a tune-up fight if you didn't know a thing about the sport. And you don't get credit for the win by a lot of people because they're going to be like, I don't know who this guy is, and that wasn't a good fight. It gets kind of hard, right? Because you're in this weight class that doesn't have an emotional attachment with the fans. And you have to, like, he could be the best fighter in the world, to me. He very much could be the best fighter with this type of performance. But will he ever get the respect he deserves for the skill set he has because people don't have the emotional connection to the opponents he has? Is the question I will ask you, my friend.
Oh, well, man, unfortunately, I don't want this to be the answer, but yeah, I don't think he will. It's been pretty historic. Anything under really featherweight, sort of, maybe super bantamweight, really, anything under welterweight struggles to gain people's attention, really. But even within people that have a casual interest in boxing, anything under sort of, 126, 122 is almost non-existent. A lot of fighters from, Asia and Latin America that people don't pay attention to. I'm not saying I know all of them, but I certainly try to pay as much attention as possible. And for guys like us who knew how good Fernando Martinez was, coming off those 2 wins over Kazuto Ioka. Now, fair enough, Ioka was on the slide a little bit, but that second fight in
That's my dude, man.
Oh,
that's Mr.
Ioka.
No TV in the US, bro. That's Can we have like like just because people don't see this guy fight, like, he's a Hall of Fame boxer, and it's like he's a great fighter, and most people are like, oh yeah, whatever. Like, isn't he a 4-division world champion?
Yeah.
And most people think he's a 2-division world champion that I talk to.
Yeah, mate, he's
I'm dead serious.
Legend. Yeah, I believe you.
Yeah, it's like most people think he's a 2-division world champion. This guy beats him twice. Martinez struggles in the second fight because I'm a degenerate sicko, probably like you. But even then, it's like you beat Ioka in Japan. Legend. And then Bam's like, let me just dance around you. Let me knock you out like the way I knocked people out when I was playing Fight Night when I was younger and like played it every day. This was like a comical knockout against like a legitimate tough dude who literally was like, dude, I'm tired of getting beat up.
Yeah.
Like the level of impressiveness of this fight, I can't even speak high enough of it.
Oh, it's insane, mate. So it brings the question, and when we have, like when Naoya Inoue was doing this kind of stuff, years ago in his career, there was that 2 schools of thought where people go, okay, rush him to the big guys, get him in with the biggest names up a few weight classes. This guy's a freak. He can do it, which he ultimately did. And there's still a couple left to go, which I have no doubt he will be in soon enough. But I think Jesse's at that level now. He's been so dominant so early in his career. He's grown into himself. He's filling out at 115. He's big, he's strong, he's tough. Martinez landed shots. He couldn't even dint him. Where would you like to see him go next? Do you want to see him slowly sort of ascend up the weight classes, or are you at that point where people were with Inoue a couple of years ago where they're like, well, you know what, man, this guy's a freak. Let's get all those big fights now.
So this is what I want. He deserves to be an undisputed champion. So let him get his undisputed title. First and foremost, he deserves it. It's obvious he's the best guy. Whoever wins that fight coming up December 27th, let him fight him. I think we all know the outcome of the fight, but he deserves it. From that point moving forward, I'd prefer it. I hate to say this because it's such a dick move. I'm a guy sitting on the outside, like eating pizza, and I'd actually prefer that you endanger yours. But he's very much like Lomachenko to me, where if he fights people the same size as him, it's like a mismatch. Like Loma at featherweight is possibly the best featherweight ever, in my opinion. Like, I don't think anyone would have ever beaten him in any. We could make that discussion. I guess if we wanted to go on a segment, we could, but like we could talk about all the great featherweights. But I think Lomachenko arguably could have beaten any version of any featherweight. Like, that's how good I think he was. But he went up to 30 and 35 because, first off, it would probably be hard to get those fights. And second off, like, because people are like, I don't want to fight this guy at that weight. And he was pursuing greatness, etc. But with Bam, I feel like to keep the intrigue, and he's also got the disadvantage of being at that lower weight class, 115, he's got to probably end up being at bantamweight. I feel like the fight that has to happen, and it's not fair to say, right, because they're not quite there, it's him and Junto Nakatani. It just feels like those two, when you look at the great fights of the eras, you look at who are the guys on the pound for pound list and who are the guys that can collide. And to me, those are the guys that are going to clean up divisions.
Man. And I think Nakatani's gone to having his next fight at 122, isn't he, at the end of the month, I believe? Yeah,
he's gearing up for that in a way fight, right?
Yeah. But, man, no, I think you're right. I think Jesse Bam is live against, well, not only live, he's up there with those guys, and that's probably the best compliment I could give him. The guy's an absolute freak of nature. And but mate, let's move on to probably the low point of the card for me. I have a very rocky history with Devin Haney, and I'll tell you why later. I kind of got sucked into the hype a little bit. Yeah, okay. I got sucked into the hype a little bit on this fight, so I was looking forward to it. But I remember, funnily enough, having a conversation on the phone with Anthony Cox, the legend we just spoke about. And I was sort of saying like, oh man, this just has, like the Regis Prograis performance written all over it for me. I just don't feel like Norman, even though he is more athletic and younger and probably not even at his prime yet due to his experience and his age, whereas Prograis was probably slightly over the hill at the time they fought. But I don't know, it just kind of looked like a similar fight. I wanted Norman to win, but unfortunately I fluked one. It kind of played out identically, including the early knockdown. What were your thoughts on Devin Haney's performance? I mean, I kind of zoned out towards the end of the fight. I'll be totally honest. And the reason I have such a rocky history with him, I just think he's boring and I can't stand clinching. And the guy's, he's just a classic clincher. It just bores me to death. I just find it hard to stay concentrated on him. But what were your thoughts on the performance, Lukie? I'm sure you might have maybe have a bit more of a positive take on it than I do.
Let's get ready to have friction. So I've actually known Devin for I think I first saw Devin in the gyms in 2013 in my area. Okay. And I actually went to 2 fights with Snack as a filmer. So I went when he fought Juan Carlos Burgos to film him. And I went to Shreveport, Louisiana. Probably the only time in my life I'll go to Shreveport, Louisiana. I was in Margaritaville with him, and we went to the Stageworks and fought the Wasp in Donji. And, Devin's one of these guys, and I've seen at least 2 years, maybe 3 or 4, of training camps with Devin and the way he trains. And he's someone where people form emotional reactions towards whatever he does in press conferences. And I'm the worst at this because, especially with Devin, because I got to know him early on, I don't really care or watch it. But for a lot of people, I understand that's their relationship with him. But he works really hard. And I tell people he's, I guess you wouldn't understand this, but there's a league over here, American football, the NFL. And really, a lot of our best athletes play in the I sometimes I say that for foreign and he's a level of athleticism where he could have played in the NFL. That's how athletic he is, and that's the level of conditioning he keeps himself at. So I never doubt Devin. It's just sometimes I think there's a lot of pressure on these young, exciting fighters. Him, Teofimo, Shakur. I think with these apps, they're just too accessible. and it's like a burden of like, you know, we all have bad moments in our life, and you really shouldn't be able to send these moments out to like a million people, right? Unless you're like there should be like almost like an age limit on it. And I think with Devin, the only thing I wonder about is just like, how do you deal with the other stuff? Because he has the talent. And in this fight, like when I was watching it, I was just like, you know, that's the Devin I know. That's the experience. And to me, I was quite proud of him. And I'll tell you why. I was proud of Devin because what he did was people were about to write him off. They were about to be like, you know, this guy can't fight. He got knocked out. So, yeah, win a boring fight. Knock a guy down, win it the way you do. Because if he had lost that fight, he would have been a laughingstock. So my frustration with that is, and I'm not saying I'm frustrated at you because you have your right to your opinion, but with Devin, and I'm not even close with Devin anymore, but the thing is, when you're in a fight like that, winning fixes everything. And he won it. And he got the knockdown. And I get the guys want to see the finish. But that's not his temperament. His temperament is to create annoying, frustrating fights. That's what Devin does well. He does annoying, frustrating fights. And he needed to win this fight. And he did it. And Devin's unique in the sense that people move the goalposts on Devin. At first, he was going to get knocked out. He wins. Well, he didn't win the way we wanted. And I think he's an interesting figure. I'm going to be interested to see how Norman comes back from this. Because watching it, as I said earlier in your show, it felt like Calzaghe versus Jeff Lacey to me.
Yeah. No, that's a great observation. And yeah, just to clarify, Lukie, I got nothing against Devin Haney personally. I don't watch press conferences or follow fighters on social media. Like, mate, I'm 37 years old. I've got better things to do than that, you know. So, but my whole frustration with him is just purely based on his fighting style and the way he clinches. And I'm not saying it's not difficult, and I'm not saying like emotionally and spiritually and all the things that he went through after the Ryan Garcia loss and the comeback weren't hard and admirable and all those type of things. And I'm not saying that the physical style that he does have in the ring is easy to reproduce for anyone else and isn't highly skilled and technical. I'm just saying personally as a fan, I just don't like watching it. I just don't have the attention span for it. I just find it dull. But I have all the respect for anyone that steps in the ring with any style and does their thing. But just as a person, you know, watching from the other side of the world, I would prefer to watch different styles. It just really does nothing for me. You mentioned there that you find it annoying. Well, his style is to create annoying and frustrating moments. That's the whole fight every time he fights for me. That's why I just prefer not to watch him, you know? So
I don't have to watch
all the respect in the world, not dissing him personally or saying he's bad and not talented.
I'm going to text him.
I just don't like watching Yeah, that's cool. I'll give him my number.
I'm joking.
I'll see if I can get him on the pod.
Part of the show. I'm going to send this part of the show and text it to him and be like, look, bro, look at what they're saying.
Prove him wrong.
The number I have probably doesn't even work. But I mean, there's tons of like I enjoy Devin's fights? No. But I find them interesting and fascinating. Right? So I think that's another thing. So what is the intention when you watch boxing? Let's have a deeper conversation. So what's the intention when you watch boxing? I don't always watch boxing for fun. I watch boxing to see what is going to be effective, what is successful, and at a deeper level, what can make money. And Devin intrigues me in that regard. So if I only watched boxing for entertainment, Devin wouldn't do it. But based on my criteria, because I'm the guy, who was the was it Francisco Vargas versus Orlando Salido? And they just punched each other and stuff, and it was like a fight of the year. Yeah. And I turned it off because I was just bored, right? So I'm the king of like, sometimes people will say that that's like the best fight ever, and TV's going off. I've seen that before. Just show me the highlights in 5 minutes. Yeah. I have a different criteria to watching fights. And I kind of gave a little bit of game to you. tonight for your audience that what I watch for. I'm not like, look, if I want entertainment, I'm gonna put on a movie. I'm gonna go to a great golf course. Like this year, I want to go to Kiowa Island or Whistling Straits. Maybe if I go to Australia, maybe we can go to Royal Melbourne.
Yeah,
Or
Australian Open starts
what's
next
the
week.
other? And what's the? I'm. That's like. Are they at Royal Melbourne this week?
Yeah, next week.
Or next
Australian
week?
Open starts on Thursday.
Oh,
next
man.
week. Yeah.
And what's the one? What's the one with Heath in it?
Kingston Heath.
That's the one I really want to play because the par threes there look phenomenal. But
Yeah.
I say like that's something that like is fun. Golf is fun. So like I'm like, okay, we can sit and talk about fun and entertainment. Boxing, there's a level of work component to me. There's a level of studying. I don't get my entertainment from boxing. So I don't discredit anyone when they discredit a fighter for not being entertaining because I don't look at this sport for entertainment. So I think that's another thing that I should throw out there.
Yeah, well, I guess as you mentioned, before we started recording, you're doing 8 hours plus a day just on boxing. It's when it's dominating your attention span.
I lied. It's like an hour, but no, I'm. We gotta make it sound like good. Romanticize it.
Mate.
Really.
What's wrong with embellishing every
20
now and
minutes.
then?
Yeah, 20 minutes. 20 minutes, 10 minutes. Just read Wikipedia's.
Check the boxing scene headlines and log off. That's what I do.
That would be a good joke for me, but I guess since I'm a contributor there, that would just be a corny. That make me kind of corny. But yeah, what are some other topics? I mean, I think we ran through this card. What else do you want to get me in trouble over? Because I'm having quite a good time talking with you, bro. So
Mate, I'm having a great time.
me as I told you.
Mate, I definitely plan on it. I love going on tangents that are unplanned. It's the funnest part about doing this. But well, we know David Benavidez did David Benavidez things against Anthony Yard. We've sort of spoken about the fights on that card.
Wait, actually, let me ask you a question. Let me hijack the show.
Go.
Can anyone beat David Benavidez?
Yes.
What style beats him?
Whoa. You've got to be able to deal with the pressure because he weaponizes cardio better than most, especially at the higher weight classes. We need a strong defense. I think a guy at Cruiserweight, I reckon Jai Opetaia punches holes in him, but I'm not, and that was sort of the point.
I want to see that fight so bad. That's just such a violent fight.
Yeah, like when you've got a guy like Jai who's so fleet of foot, he's big, he can punch, he's skilled, he moves his head, he doesn't keep his head in the center. I mean, I think that's a nightmare for David Benavidez, but it sort of leads to the whole cruiserweight thing, which is kind of where I was going, Lukie. You mentioned you got a lot of time for Zerto. Benavidez announced in the ring that fight's set up for May, I believe. What have you made of that announcement? I've got a feeling you might have already known it was coming a little earlier than we did, so you might have had time to sort of prepare some thoughts in your head already. It kind of took me certainly by a massive surprise, but yeah, it's a funny one. I never saw it coming. I really wanted Zerto Opetaia, but anyway, here we are, Zerto and Benavidez. What do you make of the whole fight announced for May, Lukie?
Man, it's weird. It's weird. It's like I don't know. It's not normal. I think that would be my answer. It's not normal, right? Because we kind of want to see Bivol or Beterbiev fight Benavidez, and we want to see Opetaia and Zordo. And now we're getting two guys who are interesting, but they really aren't. Because I'm on this show and I enjoy your show, and I want to give you a good show. I want to get you about whatever the high viewer. Yeah, we're gonna get it even higher. We're taking this to the blimp. We're going platinum. So my fear with this type of fight is, do we not get like the good Jay Opetaia fight, and do we not get the good potential with Benavidez? Like, there's a scenario where Benavidez maybe has a hard fight with Zordo, has trouble going back to light heavyweight. There's a weird second half to the career based on this one decision. Jay Apataya has to move to heavyweight. Maybe he's not as effective at heavyweight. Like, it seems like a small thing, but this could have like a butterfly effect that's like kind of big for like a lot of different players. So my first feeling was, well, this is weird.
Yeah. Mate, totally. And, 175 to 200, that's the same as, I can't forget the fighter you're talking about, but, moving up and weight coming back down, that's a huge gap. That could ruin, Benavidez's chance of light heavyweight forever. And the whole fight's weird. It's like two super middleweights fighting at cruiserweight for a world title. I never really bought Zerto as a legit cruiserweight either. Certainly proven with the wins he's had at the weight more so than Benavidez. But yeah, I mean, if you had to ask me to sum it up in one word, I would have stolen your word that you use. It's weird. I don't know if there's a demand for it. Like in Southern California, two Mexican world champions fighting each other. I imagine there has to be a lot of local support.
There'll be a demand, but it's like, I guess I look at things from a context of history of boxing, and I feel like I have a deep love of the sport, and that's why I'm on like a podcast about boxing in Australia with a great guy because of my deep love of boxing. I just really love this sport. And there's a part of me that goes, who does Bivol fight next if he were to beat Better Beef? What happens if Better Beef beats Bivol? What is Jay? Like, there's just so many different people where what's the answer now? It's like one somewhat interesting fight, but it kind of sacrifices almost a year of interesting bouts. And like I said prior, I'm not sure Jay's going to be a great heavyweight. He could be a good heavyweight, but like we might be looking at a top 10 all-time cruiserweight in Jay Apataya. Yeah. And he's really not getting his opportunities to define his legacy. And that also is frustrating to me because I've grown very fond of him after the Bradis fight because he just seems to just take fights. And those are my guys.
Yeah. Oh, mate, I'm obviously hugely biased towards Jai being an Australian as well. But, and I guess there is that sort of overseas contingent that have the mindset of like, oh, another mandatory. Who's this guy fighting? And it's like, well, if he can't get anyone to sign the bout agreement, well, he's got to defend against his mandatory. And he can't, like, Zerto's not mentioned in his name. Benavidez isn't mentioned in his name. Badu Jack's not mentioned in his name. It's Jai mentioning everyone else's name. And seemingly, I can't imagine the deals that are being put forth to these guys are absolutely horrendous. Like, it's the cruiserweight division. It's not going to be like 40 mil on the table or anything like that. But I'm obviously coming at it very biasly, but that was my other. So if you ask me, I would have stolen your word. It's weird, that fight. And the other counter effect of that, more so for me being biased than the effect on the light heavyweight division in those years of matchup, is it just leaves Jai out in the cold more. Like, what more does this guy need to do to lock himself in?
I friggin' love this dude, bro. I friggin' love Jay because, like, but like, it's like all he does is try to give you a violent action fight. He doesn't turn down any fights, and he seems a little off his rocker. And those are my favorite type of fighters. And it's like I said, he also doesn't seem like he might be a great heavyweight. So it's like we have about a 3-year window, and I think the window started in probably like maybe 2024, maybe if we're lucky it was this year. But it's like his window is now, and we got to make the fights now. And you brought up a point about, the mandatories. Yeah, when you're not getting fights, when you're a ducked fighter, you do mandatories. That's the telltale sign of a ducked fighter. Is what, like, who would you say is a ducked fighter? Like Golovkin, Benavidez, or some of these. It's mandatories. Like, a lot of times you're either doing mandatories or you're avoiding belts because you don't want to be stuck doing mandatories.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Now, Lukie, I'm going to go off on a bit of a tangent here, but you've mentioned, you've been in the gym with a lot of high-level fighters. So I imagine that there's been, maybe it's happened a couple of times, maybe it's happened a lot of times, maybe it's happened once where, can you remember a time when you saw like a high-level guy in the gym sparring, you're leaning on the ropes watching, that just blew your mind when you saw it with your own eyes?
A few. Yeah. I mean, this is a great question to ask me. So I'm going to try to get you a better answer. So I'm going to question the question. I'm gonna do like, do you remember the rapper Beanie Siegel?
I don't.
Where he used to answer a question with a question.
Okay.
Gosh damn it. Okay, so give me a more specific question because I've been around a lot of really great fighters, but try to hone in on something. Are you talking about a jab? Are you talking about the punching power? Are you talking about the ferociousness of the fighter? Because I've been around a lot of great fighters that have blown my mind, and I'll give you a very boring answer if you just keep it vague. So try to be more specific, and I can give you a better answer.
Okay, well, I'll describe my experience, and then you can bounce off that. That might be easier because the reason I asked that to you is I got to see Jai Opetaia spar the week before Devin Haney, George Kambosos, the first fight in Melbourne. And I was with Anthony Cox, the legend, the Aussie boxing scribe. Shout out to Anthony. We got invited to a private session at a gym pretty close to my house, actually. And we were under the impression that an Australian level, a regional level fighter who got to a pretty high level at cruiserweight, never fully world level, was supposed to be sparring Justice Hooney, who I'm sure you're familiar with. We thought, oh, mate, we got to get an invite to this. This is unbelievable. We turn up to the gym. Justice Hooney was nowhere to be found, but Jai Opetaia was there. So Anthony and I are like elbowing each other. Like, that's Jai Opetaia. What the hell? Anyway, Jai did 6 rounds with this unnamed cruiserweight. And my mind was completely blown, like seeing him so up close in the flesh. He was just going through the motions early. He got hit with a jab, so then he made sure he slipped the next 6 jabs and landed 7 of his own. He was just going up and down the gears with this guy. It was 6 rounds. It blew my mind. It's the most high-level thing I've ever seen with my own eyes that close in just the totality of it, I should say. After that, he got out of the ring, kept his 16-ounce gloves on and did 6 real hard rounds on the heavy bag with his trainer. They were going through combinations and doing conditioning and stuff like that. So the bags were behind us. Another one of my favorite fighters jumped into the ring, who I'm a massive fan of. He was sparring. I could not stop turning around and watching Jai hit the bags. Like, it was just absolutely like mesmerizing. Just being able to see up close the way he loads the hips, just these, the technical ability, the ferociousness, the sound of his punches, the way they go through the air. Like, I'm gushing about it, but it's truly like the most unforgettable boxing moment that I've ever had the privilege of seeing up close. So that was my experience. That was kind of the reason I was asking you. Do you have a moment where you felt similar?
I'm very lucky where I've had those for 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, like I said, like I've got a lot of those. 2 come to mind, but if you're more specific where you'd like to know, I can go into specific details.
I want to know
if there's any. Okay. So one was Caleb Plant before he was fighting for the title against Jose Uzcategui. I think I was the only guy invited in. And like you said, it's private session. Justin Gamber is someone I deeply respect in boxing. I've always had a great relationship with him. And I think that he's just a really, really good coach. At the time, Caleb was training with Justin. Richie Plant, his father's a great guy. Just a really great team, right? And Caleb is in there sparring a heavyweight. And I remember he's pushing him back and he's talking to him and he's like, "You're supposed to be the bigger man. And I'm moving you back. Look at this. I'm pushing you back." And it was like, the thing about Caleb is, even if he were to do bad, he has this confidence that's truly that of a fighter. So he believes so much that he's going to do it. And in those sessions, I had met him before, but he rose to a different level. Like, he wasn't losing a round in those sessions, and he was bullying big men. And I was just like, okay, like everyone. And if you remember for that fight, everyone was like, Uzcategui's going to win. Uzcategui's going to win. People really were low on Plant. And I just knew because I saw the mood, and there's still a video on my YouTube. It's about 2019, 2018. I went there with my mom, actually. My mom came to the gym with me.
Awesome.
I took her for Christmas. I took my mom. She came. And there was a girl from Fox. I got her number. She was shooting the photos. And I was like, God damn, I got her number by accident. I didn't even mean to.
Is this the best day ever or what?
No, it wasn't the best day. But like, my mom came to the gym with me And that's always like back then I was like embarrassed. I'm like, oh, my mom's in here. My mom's a character. She's like 50 Cent. My mom is like the most aggressive person ever. And she just loved Caleb because of his mentality. And I just remember Louis DeCubis Jr. was there, and he's a great guy. And I just remember everyone knew he was going to win. Just like the way he sparred, and I only was there for a day. Like there's been camps I've been there for a whole week. I mean, I've got a lot of camps. Like I got a lot of camp stories. Another one is Demetrius Andrade. Demetrius Andrade sparred a guy. Every friggin' round, he did 12 rounds, he sparred differently. So he called out the way he was sparring. He's like, I'm a pressure fighter this round. Amateur boxing style. We're going Olympic style. 1 point, 2 point, 3 point. He's like, okay, now I'm a back foot boxer. Every round, Demetrius called his shot and fought a different way. Demetrius in his prime was something different. That's why I say it would be helpful if you asked for what you want, because I mean, I've been around Devin. Devin obviously had his moments. Vanez Martirosyan, who just passed away, had his moments. Do you want me to name? I guess what would probably be more helpful to you is I'll name the people I've been around that I can think of off the top of my head that I saw up close, and maybe that would help you. I was around Daniel Jacobs. I was around Willie Nelson a lot. I was around Sergey Derevyanchenko. I was around, obviously Devin Haney, Darren Cunningham, Andy Vences for all of their come up. Gabriel Flores Jr. for a lot of his development. And various others like Oscar Valdez, Jesse Magdaleno. I forget, Caleb Plant, like various fighters. So if there's any of those names that ring a bell, and it kind of sucks because I'm a behind the scenes guy. I almost wish you knew who I was around when they were fighting, because it would be easier for me to answer.
Well, a name you just mentioned there towards the end, Oscar Valdez, I've always been a huge fan of. And I'm assuming you were around sort of the early part of his career too, when he was with like Manny Robles?
Right before he fought for the title was when we were around him. And I remember he came to the gym, and he was the nicest man ever. To this day, he'll shake my hand because he's the most loyal guy. Him and the Benavidezes are so amazing. They meet you once and they're the greatest people. Big David would see me at every event, just walks up, shakes your hand, thank you. They're the realest, most genuine people. And I emphasize that about Big David, is like how good of a man he is and how good like the father and all them are. They like met me once at a rinky-dink gym, but they're just like real. Yeah. And with Valdez, I remember he gets there. And if you're with me, right, Andy Vences was sparring him, and we were going to the Rock boxing gym. So we get there, and you have to pay $1 to get into the boxing gym, right? It's part of a church. I think you had to pay $1 to get in. That's and I remember cool. I was broke at the time. So I was kind of like, man, they're really going to ask us for something? And I remember Andy's like, don't worry, I'm going to get you. You just get me coffee later. So Andy paid my $2. For this sparring session, right, I live 6 hours away. I woke up at 3 a.m, drove down at 3, got there at 9, came from my drive into the sparring session to be with Andy. So Andy was training with Gabriel Flores Sr. So I did a 6-hour drive. We ate that like Scooby snacks. And then I went straight into the thing. Oscar was there by the time I was there, listening to whatever the hell he was listening to, but he had his headphones on. And he wasn't looking at anybody. And I was like, oh man, Buck, he's really going to be doing it, because like the way he was warming up, I could tell he channels like a deep anger or something. He's not trying to be your friend before. So he was really polite. He shook all of our hands, but before like a intense sparring, he was there. And then, the work was the work, and it was solid, and we keep that. I'm an old school guy. We keep that in the gym. And, Oscar is formidable. He's a legendary fighter. I think he's a Hall of Fame boxer. And what I always remember about Oscar was his work ethic. You know, this is someone that would just push and push and push. He wouldn't stop. And I learned a lot. Like, you know how you talk about technique? I learned a little bit about that grit and determination from Oscar, because I used to be like you. I was like Reagan Diao, Erislandy Lara. Those are my dogs. And Oscar Valdez, kind of watching him, he showed me there's a little bit more than just that, because he showed me that just a little bit of determination can get something.
So I can't remember if this was the fight he won the title or the one before it, but I've spoken about it before on the pod, so I apologize to anyone who's hearing it for the 15th time. But one of the most impressive performances I ever saw from Oscar Valdez is when he knocked out Evgeny Gradovich. And it took, I think, 5
This would have
rounds.
been after that.
Okay. So you're a little bit before that. But at that point, at that stage in his career, and the reason I point out that fight is because it was such a brilliant boxing performance by Oscar, and he was setting up that left hook for rounds, and he brought it. He brought Evgeny Gradovich onto it, and he waited and was patient enough to wait for the perfect time to let it go and land it with, maximum effect, and got himself a great win whilst also staying safe himself. He was much more of a boxer in that early part of his career, and then there was sort of a switch where he became just super aggressive, and it was in really fun fights, but he was never the boxer in the second half of his career that he was in the first. So at that point in time when you were around him, I'm assuming he was much more of a sort of box first mentality than sort of the brawler that he later became. Was that sort of your experience with him up close?
Do you want me? Well, I mean, to be honest with you, I was a camera operator around Andy Vences, who was trying to learn as much from Gabriel Flores Sr. as possible, because at the time he was the smartest boxing coach I had ever been around. He would call things and I'd be like, man, this guy really gets it. And I was just learning so much around him that I almost thought that I was a coach. So I wasn't, maybe it's ego or whatever, I wasn't studying like, man, I got to watch what Oscar's doing. I was very focused on Andy.
Yeah.
Selfishly, because Andy was leading into it was the Casey Ramos fight. Andy was leading into that Casey Ramos fight. And, it's funny to say these things, right? But when you care about an individual and you're part of a team, you're really just focused on them. So I saw the great qualities of Oscar Valdez, but when he went to the bag, I was focused on Andy. How are you doing, Andy? What are you doing? Like, because the Casey Ramos fight at that time was a 50-50 fight. Andy had a lot of average performances. So this was a make or break fight, and it was a headline at Treasure Island in Las Vegas. So it was hard. I remember when I saw the way Oscar worked in the gym. I don't remember the technical details. I just remember thinking he was the hardest worker in the gym. And I remember he was the type of person that if I feel like Andy earned his respect because Andy's also a hard worker. And they almost were doing like alpha male who can work harder stuff. So I remember that they were almost in competition without saying it. It was like a nonverbal agreement, like, oh, I'm going to keep going. No, I'm going to keep going. No, I'm going to keep going. And like, they didn't even have to say it. Like, they were almost in harmony, those sparring sessions, hitting the bag, trying to like keep going. And I think that that's what created a special camp for that fight, was the competition amongst those two, because they had a similar mindset. But I can't really break down the technique because I was so focused on Andy.
Yeah. Oh, that's fair enough. Well, Lukie, I did all this preparation, wrote all this stuff down. We basically got to none of it.
Give me one more thing from your preparation. Yeah.
No. What I was gonna say is that they're the type of podcast I love the most, because this is like basically if we had met up at a bar in California somewhere, this is what we'd be talking about. So this is perfect. I'm loving it, mate. But I mean,
just ask me a few more. Get me in. No, you're not keeping me. Like, my computer might die in a couple of like 10, 15 minutes, but you're not keeping me. I'm quite enjoying this. And, I'm starting to get to that point where I'm washed up and anything could happen to me. So I should probably tell some of my stories so people know that I actually lived a life that was worth living,
Well, I very much appreciate you sharing them, mate. But
Well,
we've got to.
ask me one more question. Ask me one
Yeah.
more gym story question.
Well, I mean, I want to know about Daniel Jacobs. And it seems like you spent a bit of time in New York. A couple of those fighters you mentioned were in the New York area. Did you spend time
so
in
let
that
me
boxing
explain
scene?
to you this. No, so this is another thing you could dig deep on me. Me and Victor Conti got to know each other in 2017, and Victor became a very influential person in my life. And I'll share this with your show. Me and Vic didn't really get super close until this year. I battled bad
Okay.
depression, and I just started randomly cold calling him. And me and him probably, sadly, he died this year, but we ended at peace. Like, he told me that like he respected what I had done genuinely, and me and him butted heads a lot, because like he was a very successful person and I was learning how to be successful, and that's what happens, right? And so he helped Daniel Jacobs with the Golovkin fight, and Andre Rozier ran the show. So the New York fighters that were with Rozier would do camps with Snack. So I was around all the Snack fighters from 2017 until now. So I do have ties in New York, but my ties in New York are Jose Gonzalez. My ties in New York are fighters like Price Taylor now and the up and comers. I'm cool with Lenny and Richardson Hitchens, but I don't have ties in New York like that. The ties with those fighters was because they'd come to the West Coast for training camp, and I was the white nerdy dude who had a fancy video camera. His mom bought him for like a birthday. I was like, get me this video camera. And that video camera was the best investment ever because it basically opened up the door to be a part of like 15 world-class training camps, including, I forgot one, Mikey Garcia versus Earl Spence.
Oh.
I was there for 6 weeks for that training camp.
Wow.
So Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I was there for every single training session of Mikey Garcia. So it's Sergey Lipinets is another one I forget. Like I'd have to go through my archive to look through all the training camps because I literally forgot all the training camps. But I'll let you go back to asking questions. That's just the answer.
No, mate, that's fascinating. Well, that Mikey Garcia, Errol Spence fight, I don't expect you to give anything away like behind the scenes, but Mikey
why not?
Oh, okay, sweet. Well, Mikey kept saying that whole lead up, he sees something. We all saw the fight, it played out. He wasn't able to implement or take advantage of whatever it was that he saw. Behind the scenes, maybe we don't have to know what it is, but was there a specific game plan around a specific observation that they'd made about Spence that they sort of built their game plan around, but were ultimately unable to put into effect?
Yes. And we will do a podcast at a later date, and I could possibly give you that. Have you ever heard anything about what happened fight night with Mikey?
Nothing.
Okay, good. So we're not going to get into that, but Mikey, that wasn't the traditional Mikey, and it speaks higher to Mikey's character. I'm tempted to break it to you. I'm very tempted.
I don't want to put pressure on you, mate. We can save it for another time.
You want it. You're like,
I'm just out of curiosity. Yeah, but I don't want to put pressure on you.
I probably shouldn't. I probably shouldn't because I'd get a phone call. No one will get mad, but I'd get a phone call. And like sometimes a phone call is, it's just, I don't know. But it just depends on how this conversation goes. But the Mikey that fought Spence, if people see, this is what people don't, I'm going to say this and then I have to get my battery charger because my computer might die. But I'm enjoying this is, Mikey is such a good guy that he won't say things that other fighters would say. Gotcha. And there were weaknesses he saw in Spence, and these weaknesses Crawford exploited. But there's more to that story. Now, if you'll give me 3 minutes, I can get a charger and you can have more of my time. My computer's just low on juice. So just, if you can talk for a second, I'll just disappear and then I'll be back.
No worries, mate. All good. Well, mate, I would love to know out of all, and I didn't know you had such an extensive background with all those different fighters in camps. But was there one fighter, or maybe there was a couple, but was there a fighter in particular that because I should preface it by saying we hear of like the grind of training camp and how it wears guys down. And obviously it's, physically and mentally unbelievably difficult. And we hear and read stories about the peaks and valleys that guys go through mentally and emotionally through that 12-month or 12-week or 10-week period. Was there one guy that you spent time with that just seemed to absolutely thrive in the trenches, that sort of surprised you to the point like, man, I've been in all these other camps. These guys do it tough. This guy loves it.
You're not going to love the answer because it's not a high profile name.
That's okay.
The first name that comes to that is Andy Vences. He was the king of overtraining. He was the king of, he would drive 2 hours. So he'd do an hour training with Victor Conti's Remy Corchemny workout from San Jose, go home, eat, drive an hour and a half to 2 hours to his boxing gym, train for 2 hours, drive 2 hours home, do it every 5 to 6 days. Like that was the routine. Always paid people and worked a full-time job. He was a guy that really embraced the grind. You probably want like a more high profile one, I would assume. But Andy really speaks to it. Andy Vences was the biggest, like the hardest worker. Daniel Jacobs worked hard. Demetrius Andrade was another one that stands out, but Andy was the one that worked because Andy was making whatever he was making, but he was making so much sacrifice at the time. He's the one. But like I think for you, different things stand out to you. I'm like really, I don't know, like I'm a boxing man. So like I go to the gym and I assume I'm going to the boxing gym and people always grab my shoulder and say, hey, look, I got this shiny prospect. Can you go to this famous promoter that says you're cool and tell them I'm good and stuff? So like, I don't see the same like intrigue for me. Like Andy was a guy who was making a middle class income or less and training 4 to 5 hours a day and paying sparring partners. And he did it for 3 to 4 years. And the Eric De Leon fight, he probably should have won that fight. I thought he did. And it just derailed him. Boxing's about momentum. This is something I'd like to share with your audience. And I'm sure you're excited to have to edit this episode and stuff, but it's about momentum. And you hit these lulls in your career. And when you get that lull, you can get screwed, bro. And Andy's just one of those guys where like, if he wins the Eric De Leon fight, he probably becomes a world champion. He probably gets a bunch of fights and people talk about him. The momentum's gone. And it's just what happens. Andy probably would have fought Shakur Stevenson and whatever happened would have happened. But if you're asking me who's the person that comes to my mind for hardest worker, it's Andy Vences.
Wow. That's such, that famous quote, you can love boxing, but it'll never love you back. It's a perfect encapsulation of it. That fork in the road moment that totally, changed his career.
Can I ask you about gym guys? Who's the fastest you've ever seen?
I haven't really seen a lot of high level dudes. A lot of my stuff was amateurs. I only had 5 amateur fights. I would never call myself a fighter. I was in the early days, in my early teens, there were pros in a gym I was training at, but I was too young and inexperienced to really be able to take notice of it, and then later as I got sort of into later teens and early adulthood, it was, just in amateur gyms, basically with it. There weren't any pros. So I don't really, that's why I'm so fascinated. And that Jai Opataya sparring story was just like blew my mind so much because I just haven't been around it. Well, that's really the only time I've seen that world-class level up close, and maybe there's a little bit of, because you've been fortunate enough to see it so often, you kind of get a little desensitized to it, possibly. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but so I haven't really been.
I'd just say burnt out and normalized.
Yeah.
Like you got to remember, like I can't do much else besides boxing. I'm a boxing man.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm not a great writer. Just ask Jason Langendorf. He's like trained me to be competent. Ask Tris Dixon. These are great writers. Ask Matt Christie. These are great writers. These are guys that are like, they could have won awards. I'm not a great writer, but I'm a boxing man and I work really hard and I listen to people. And that's another thing you got to do. And, you know, they've had to really help me to be able to be on such a professional platform as Boxing Scene, but I'm grateful to them because those are, you know, they've built me up to whatever I am. And, you know, I'm internally thankful for them, but I'm a fighting man. And going to these gyms, like, it's like a cheat code. Like, I'm a boxing writer, but in my heart, like I say, I'm a fighting man. Like, most writers don't feel comfortable in the gym. I feel more comfortable in the gym than I do in a fight. Like, I feel offended if I can't go into the gym when a big fighter's there. You know, it's like, why can't I? I know so-and-so. You know, I like to be in the gym and I like to see this. And it's like, I always see subtle things because since 2012, I've been in training camps and you learn from each training camp and they give you experience with your eye. And I see different nuanced things. So the pain, the suffering, the poverty I've faced, it all led to the knowledge I experienced. And being on a podcast like this is actually really empowering because it makes me feel like I did something in my life. If you want, if you want, like, another good thing you could ask me is about Victor Conte, because I feel like for the last 6 or so years, I was around him a good bit, not a lot, but I had a good beat on him. And I feel like if you have any questions about that, I'm an underutilized resource, although I won't put things out there, but I feel like people were very disrespectful when he died about his past, and they didn't talk about the fact that, and look, you can push back on me, but I feel like everybody wanted to kind of crap on a guy because he made a mistake, but he was trying to make amends with his past, and people, you know, they keep bringing up the past with him, but that's another person you could ask me about.
Yeah, well, certainly. I mean, and obviously want to be sensitive to his recent passing, and of course, and your pre-existing relationship with him, and you know, from literally the other side of the world. Obviously, I know a little bit about Victor and sort of how his past and his, you know, doping infractions and all that sort of stuff. Because of that, it seemed to me, my impression, obviously from the other side of the planet, that he was a much maligned figure. But you knowing him quite personally, Lukie, what can you sort of talk to of the, you know, like what's the positive aspects of Victor Conte that maybe people listening in other countries who only have just read a couple of headlines like myself wouldn't know about?
He was crazy. I think my smoking hot girlfriend's coming in, but we're gonna do, because this is an Australian podcast. Okay, we're gonna do at least 10 more minutes because my smoking hot girlfriend. Do you want to do here? I gotta go off camera to give her a kiss real quick.
Okay, no, well.
Okay, so my smoking hot girlfriend just came in, but because I'm in Australia, I'm ahead of time. Yeah. I gotta give you at least 10 because this is international. I can't do this. It's international. When I started out doing this, I was doing this mom and pop in a 10-mile radius. Yeah. Now I'm doing interviews in Australia. You don't understand how much that means to me. I was doing this in a 30-mile radius from so-and-so to so-and-so, and I never thought I'd leave the state. And now people from another place want to hear. That's pretty cool. So Victor Conte, what is a complicated figure, right? Because he was a very generous guy. I think that he loved getting his name out there, and it rubbed people the wrong way. And I think Devin learned a lot from Victor, not from the nutrition as much, though he probably did that. He learned how to get the media rolling. Because if you look at Devin's career, Victor and Devin have a same relationship with the media, and no one sees it. Do you ever notice that? The way, like,
No.
some people like Victor, but a lot of people are like, oh, this guy's bad. What do people say about Devin? Oh man, this guy's boring. I don't like his attitude, but some people like
That's
it.
what I said.
It almost mirrors Victor. I think that Victor had a big influence on Devin and continues to have a big influence. And I saw a tweet he put out today speaking on some issues, and I remember it because I was in the gym when he put it out. And I think the thing about that no one understands about Victor is he was a very generous person. He was a very complicated person, but he's going to have a lot of his legacy is going to live through Devin Haney. Devin is kind of like the boxer that he probably put the most effort into in like his later years. And I think people are going to see a lot of, they won't understand it until it's done. But Devin got a lot of knowledge, and it's people always like try to think about just his nutrition. Victor was a brilliant businessman. Do you know how many Bentleys he bought when I was around him? He had like 4 or 5 Bentleys. Like when I was with him, like he bought them brand new. He had Bentley magazine at the store. He had Bentley magazine, and he had them like for 7 years, like going back, right? Devin is going to live on that legacy of the knowledge of the businessman that a lot of people don't see. So that to me, sharing with you insight that I think people don't often talk about. We're talking like real fight guy stuff. I think that's going to be the legacy of Victor, is the way Devin finishes his career. I think when it's all said and done, people are going to see the impact Victor had over his career.
Yeah. Wow. That's great. Unbelievable insight, Lukie. Thanks for sharing it, mate. And it just goes to show you that there's always the other side of the coin, and people have different experiences with different people. And, it's easy to judge people.
Too. I want to speak on that because whenever people talk about my guy, Victor, right, it's always like they're talking about Al Capone. They're like, look, man, like we know that there's, like, look, the guy made a mistake. He got hemmed up. He got arrested. Do you not think, like, this is the thing that I say, and like, albeit I got my smoking hot girlfriend in the other room and I'm relaxing. It's the holidays in America. But do you not think that he was monitored when he got home? Do you not think that this guy was like heavily, like, people weren't watching him? Like, if he made any mistake on anything, he was going to get in trouble. Like the guy made a mistake, tried his best to rectify the mistake, was heavily monitored, and people treated him like as if he was a career criminal. He made a mistake. I won't get into much more than that, but like, it annoys me knowing the man, because I'll put it like this. A bunch of people told him not to work with me. A bunch of people told him, but Victor's Victor, and he's his own man. And he was like, you know what? Lukie makes the best videos. And that decision led to me being where I'm at now. And it led to me telling you some boring as hell stories about boxers that you're fascinated about over where you're at. And that annoys me because people try to condemn, because I'm a part of his history, right? And then if everything that's with him is all messed up, then everything about my origin story is all messed up. So it kind of annoys me, because how come no patron saint was out there to give this really awesome, cool, knowledgeable boxing guy an opportunity? I was sitting there with open arms. Come on, somebody give me an opportunity. And it was him. So I don't appreciate when people start off everything like, oh man, this guy that made all these, it's like something happened and he tried to rectify it and no one ever listened because they judged him on one thing. I don't know about your religious denomination, but I'm a Christian and I believe in forgiveness. And for me, I think that he never saw forgiveness. And don't get me wrong, he could be a mean guy, and he was a controversial guy. And if he was here, I'd call him, and he'd probably tell you the same. But it annoys me. It still bothers me when people bring up that he was just like this. And I'm not saying it to you. I'm saying this just to say it. It bothers me when people put it out there this guy that made all these mistakes, and he's a controversial figure, and you're from another place, so I get why because the media and the narrative. But it does bug me because the guy tried everything he could, and nobody really listened or cared. They already made their judgment.
Yeah. Wow. No, well, thanks for sharing that, Lukie. And yeah, hopefully, your ability to get some more of that positive stuff out there recently, and especially just now on this show, makes the recent passing a little easier. But I guess only time will tell on that.
No one's gonna listen to that. Like, everyone's got their own opinions, and they're not gonna. I just want to say my piece because that was my guy.
Mate, I respect the loyalty. Absolutely. No, it's more power to you, mate. But Lukie, I've taken enough of your time, mate. But just before we go, mate, as I mentioned at the very start, you are one of the most prolific, and I don't use this term in a derogatory sense, but boxing content creators, if that's what I can say. You work on multiple different platforms, the YouTube, you've got your Substack with the writing column, your contributions to boxing scene. Mate, you're always putting stuff out there. Ironically, you're probably the opposite of me. My real struggle is, like, I try to do one pod a month, and most of the time I can't even live up to that schedule. So I need to certainly take some motivation and inspiration from you on that front. But what have you got coming up for the rest of the year, mate? Is there anything you've been working on out of the ordinary, or some guests you've got lined up for something, or a particular article you're working on? Like, what can we expect from you over your multiple platforms for the next couple of weeks after Christmas?
God. I mean, it's a hamster wheel, bro. So I mean, every single week I've probably got about, I don't know how many stories do I put on Boxing Scene a week? Would you guess?
I'd probably say like 10.
Okay, and then Substack, I'm doing about 3 a week. I do 1 podcast. I don't know. It's hard to do it. I got a prospect list.
I feel like I get the email updates like easily almost 1 a day. Sometimes I get like 3 in a day. So it seems like all the time, mate. So
that's what we're trying to do. Like, you're a fan of golf. Remember, like, so the way I try to live my life is Brooks Koepka when he played Bethpage Black.
Mm-hmm.
It's just mechanical strength, power, and monotony. We're just trying to be that in boxing writing. So we're just trying to hit just fairways, greens, overpower, and monotonous. Yeah. It's the same old thing over and over. That's the style to boxing writing.
You mentioned Brooks Koepka, and this is a boxing show. So who wins in a fight, Brooks or Bryson DeChambeau? Even though they've kind of made up now.
I don't know. Who wins, Brooks or Bryson? Boxing fight. Boxing. Bryson? I don't know. I kind of think Brooks wins just because sometimes the angrier man wins in a fight.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
That Benavidez, Anthony Yard, if you looked at him in pictures and didn't know anything about boxing, Bryson rips up.
I just like, that's me. My default is sometimes like, because growing up, like, I just learned that sometimes, like, in the boxing gym when you're 14, sometimes the angrier kid wins.
Yeah.
And that kind of translated to me, like, but we'll get into that origin story another day, but
absolutely.
I don't know. I think Brooks probably wins that one. I'm trying to think who would be the best pro golfer that could be. Wasn't Fred Funk? Didn't he box a little bit?
I have no idea. I'm not sure.
I think Fred Funk was a boxer. I think my guy, both of our guys, because he's Australian, I think Adam Scott would be a good boxer. He's like 6'3", good technique. I think you could teach him a good jab. I think he's fundamentally sound.
And he's the quiet man you got to be careful about. Just sitting in the corner, minding he knows business. He's not telling you it's coming. Yeah.
Jason Day is another one that I think could probably throw those things. I'm trying to think like who I'd look at as like an archetype for. I'm trying to think of major winners currently that would be good boxers. Who would you say in the last? Hideki might be a good boxer. I mean, he's got a belly though, so we got to get him in the gym.
Jordan Spieth's got that rage, to your point.
Nah, he's too emotional.
Yeah,
because emotion can be manipulated. So emotion can be like the first thing you got to learn when you deal with a fighter is emotion can be manipulated, and you don't want to be emotional because look, if you have because like I was telling my smoking hot girlfriend in the other room, I was watching the fights this Saturday, and I put a shark tank in there so I could swim because I'm a shark. So I'm watching that fight, and I need my natural habitat. So I set a shark tank in there so I could swim around, so I could see what I'm seeing, and I could see all my treacherous opinions. And guess what? None of my treacherous opinions of my real observations are going to be on this show because I'm saving them for all my, whatever I think I see, all the good stuff.
Yeah,
I'm not sharing it because that might be worth like $1 or $2 million.
No, mate, keep it to yourself. Absolutely.
That's right. That's right. But we sit up here in that little shark thing swimming. I'm trying to think who I could get in the boxing from the PGA Tour. Who would be my first? I can't think of a guy. Who would you pick if we had a draft? Any PGA DP Tour, you pick a guy, I pick a guy.
Man, I reckon Tommy Fleetwood's going to be sneaky.
Oh, he's getting fucked up. Like, I hate to say it because that's my guy. And what do you think? Tommy good in boxing, or is he getting beat up? Okay, she said, I don't know.
I wouldn't. None of us do, really.
But I mean, I just think he's too nice. I think the temperament, you can't be nice in boxing. But look, man, I really respect you, bro. This is a great show. I hope I gave you a good podcast. I know it was all over the place. But I really appreciate what you do. You have a great channel, and we got to get you back on whatever the hell I do. So,
oh, mate, no, Lukie, thanks very much for the time, mate. I really appreciate it. Like I said, I always prepare stuff, but my favorite chats with people are the ones where we don't even have to look at the Word document. We just talk about whatever we talk about, and the podcast is what it is, mate. They're always the most fun.
Well, get me on a couple of times.
Yeah, well, hopefully I'm
just like, yeah. I mean, go by your work ethic in 2028, we'll we'll get back to this, and in 2028, just like write down some like best jabs or something because we can get something controversial going. But it'd be great to talk to you in a year and a half based on your schedule, and
I'll work on it.
It was quite a pleasure.
I'll work on it, mate. No, but thank you, Lukie. I really appreciate it, mate. You do excellent work across all the platforms you work on. For everyone listening and watching, I will have all the links to Lukie's outlets in the description of this episode and in the comments. So please click away and support a lifelong boxing guy. Yeah, you do fantastic work, Lukie. You've been incredibly nice to me, mate. For someone of your stature and your experience in the game to be willing to spend some time with me and send me a message every now and then, mate, means the world. So, no, massively appreciate it, mate. But yeah, just stay on the line. I'll just finish this up because it just takes a couple of seconds. But yeah, let's hope we're talking sooner rather than later.
All right, guys, and that was my chat from a week and a half ago with Luke Ketelle. Man, Lukie's a genuinely nice bloke. He couldn't have been more generous with his time. I kept asking him more and more questions, and to his credit, he kept giving me more time when he easily could have said, all right, mate, I'm done. Lukie famously doesn't like to really do long pods. I don't mind a long pod. I like a long chat. But yeah, he certainly was as generous as possible with his time. And as mentioned in the chat, Lukie is as prolific a boxing contributor as you can get, from video to podcast, articles on Boxing Scene. His awesome quality content is accessible on any platform in any form that you choose to consume it. So please do and help support. All the links to Lukie's outlets and platforms are all in the description of this episode. So click away and give a follow and some support to one of the good guys in the sport. And yeah, throw out the rundown. Lukie doesn't need it. And after we stopped recording, he also gave me a golf swing lesson, which was awesome. From what I can tell, he's bloody quite the golfer, certainly way better than me. So yeah, I had fun on multiple levels talking to Lukie. So yeah, that was certainly an enjoyable one for me, guys. So we're back. I've got to take a leaf out of Lukie's book and ramp up the consistency, but fingers crossed moving forward. But guys, as I mentioned in the intro, this episode in particular was delayed, and I thought it wasn't going to come out at all in any way, shape or form for quite a while. We had an issue with the online recording. I won't bore anyone with the details. I had never experienced this problem before. I didn't know anything about it. I had to do so much Googling and researching to try and figure out how to at least get it out there in some way, somehow. So what's ended up happening is the video portion, I just could not recover. I couldn't get that at all. But I was able to sort of like backdoor style MacGyver and get a copy of the audio, which the quality, you may not have noticed, was slightly diminished from the usual recording. It was like a cloud backup or whatever, and I had to like double record it to get it in so I could put it in, make the actual episode itself. So it's a bit of an old school episode. So we haven't got the video on YouTube. I think there will still be just the audio will go up on YouTube, but there was no video for this particular episode. Yeah, it all stems down to ran into a problem I'd never ran into before. I didn't know how to fix it. Obviously prepared for it in the future, so it won't happen again. But yeah, that was totally down to me. And the delay, it took me that long to figure out how to, kind of MacGyver some sort of episode out of it. Because I thought at the end of the day, it was a really fun conversation I had, and I think it's certainly worth people's time, and I think people will enjoy it. So I didn't want it to just be laying out there in the ether without being released. So yeah, that's my problem. But I did take some motivation from Lukie. As I mentioned, he is one of the most, well, maybe the most prolific boxing content creator, and I mean that word as a compliment out there. So I already had the next pod organized, which will be dropping in a couple of days from now, barring any unforeseen issues, which this pod seems to be the undisputed king of unforeseen issues. But hopefully we should be back to regular programming only in a couple of days, which is pretty cool. And I'll certainly plan on making it up to Lukie and getting him back on the pod relatively soon for a proper episode with the video and everything as well. So stay tuned for that. But guys, if you want to get in contact with me, you can send me an email at TUSCPod@gmail.com. That's TUSCPod@gmail.com. If you want to throw a tweet at me, you can do that at delivery_man2. Also got the Insta page, guys, but again, not a must follow. Haven't put anything on that for ages because haven't dropped any eps, but there'll be a couple of eps in a relatively short time, so we'll get active on that platform too. But guys, we've got some good fights coming up. We will get into that in the next episode, which will be out sooner rather than later, so keep your eyes and ears peeled. But guys, until then, enjoy the fights. Thanks for listening, and I'll chat to you later.
Road less travel may add up the change. Living like there's no tomorrow, then tomorrow came.
Going all out.
I was living like there's no tomorrow, then tomorrow came. I got the wake up call, laughing through the window frame.